the idea of the future, and bliss postponement in our society. Uh-oh. All right, so this one is also a really big topic. What are you looking for?
My binder.
Oh, it should be somewhere. This is a topic that I wanted to cover because I think that one of the things, too, that students need to be reminded of in our society. I don't know if this is true everywhere, but I definitely see it in our society. It's the idea of this idea that you're going to be at peace and in a blissful state at some other time. But definitely right now is not that time. And so we're trained to this. The reason I talk about this in our society, especially in Western society in general, is that when we're talking about patterns, we're talking about patterns of learning. And we were talking about how we're taught very specific kind of ways that we learn things, right? So modalities of learning. For instance, doing process maps, really basic stuff, like put your feet at the front of the mat with your toe knuckles touching. Do you feel your toe knuckles touch? Yes. Okay, bring your ankles apart 1/2 inch, approximately the width of your finger. Look down at your ankles. Are they doing that? Yes. Okay, great. Reach your arms to the sky. So laying out these processes. But what also happens when we are trained in a specific society is that our environment shapes some of our ways of dealing with emotions, or ways of dealing with processes in life, whatever they are. And I think what our society is perhaps trained to do is the reason we take jobs that, like, even today I was talking to somebody and I said, well, are you sure that you enjoy coding? She's talking about coding computers. And I know because I built yoga websites for my company for so long, I actually learned some coding, and I don't really enjoy it that much, to be honest. I don't. I'd rather hire somebody to do coding if I need coding. I don't mind building websites because there's an artistic element to it, but the idea of this thing that's coming, right? Like, we all have aspirations, and I'm not saying don't dream big and don't live for your dreams. That's definitely a healthy part of being a person, and you're going to have some of that. But what yoga reminds us, I think a big part of it is that some of that stuff is a hoax. Meaning, you're in school, you go to make a grade, right? So you're in class and you want to get a good grade on this test. Great, so you go into school and you're a kid and you're taught if you get good grades, then you'll be able to go off to the next school, right? Which is, let's say, middle school. And if you do good in middle school, if you're a good boy or a good girl, and you do well, you'll go off to high school, right? And you think, so in your mind, you're always thinking that there's this next stage that's coming, and that when you're in high school, you'll be big. Remember that? Like, I remember, how many of you remember that? I remember, like, when I'm in high school, remember seeing, like, the high school kids that were seniors in high school, and you thought, like, no, those are, like, adults, pretty much. Like, I'm actually going to be 18. I'm going to be an adult at that point, right? It's funny now. Isn't it funny now, right? Which is, I want to talk about that a little bit. But you're laughing because we look at high school kids, right? Okay. So we go into that. We go into high school. And then we leave high school and we go to college, right? And doesn't it start sounding like the same thing? When I get to commencement, right? When I get to commencement, then when I get through these exams, I won't have to be in school anymore. And we tell ourselves then, we're out of school now, and we think like, but commencement, then we can relax, and we'll be at this high level, right? But then we leave high school, we leave college, we get into the workforce, and we realize that almost pretty much any coworker you've worked with has said to you, like, oh, that stuff, none of that's going to apply actually in this job, right? Pretty much. I mean, I've had people say that to me. Most of that's not going to apply in the real world. So let that go, and now you start all over again. And now you're like, okay, after 3 weeks of training, then I'll finally, I'll get the position. Maybe in 3 months I'll know I have the position locked in. And then that continues, right? Does that sound familiar? Anyone? Right? And then that continues on. You're out of college now. You're at work. And you're, let's say, 25 or 30 or whatever. And you look back and you realize like you did keep the job, right? You got the job, but there's still now you've got the job, but you're maybe not, you don't own the company, right? And then you want to own the company. It's funny because that's funny to me now. You want to own the company for some reason because you think that when you own the company, then you could relax. That's right. You don't have a boss anymore. How could you not be totally on top of the world completely all the time when you own a company? Because you don't have a boss, right? Doesn't that sound good? Yeah. Right? Yeah, kind of. But then and it is good. It's good. But I own a company, and I can tell you that there's still there's a thing that's coming. Still, there's something. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I definitely there's I don't know. Let me think of one. It won't take me long. Like another house. I have a house already. But for some reason, I want to have another house now. Because I already have a house. So the only other thing for me to do is build another house. Or franchise my company. Right. So you reach 30, you reach 35. And you got a business. And you got a house. And then you just and there's like a franchise, which I'm working on. And a second house, which I made an offer on yesterday, but it got turned down, but that's okay. And so but there is this one thing what's really interesting is this perpetual postponement of bliss and peace in our society. This idea that at some point, and I remember, how many of you remember being a kid and seeing like an elder with gray hair and saying like, yo, that person knows everything. They have wisdom levels that I don't have. And so on and so forth down the line, to where you realize at some age, you realize, or hopefully, not everyone does though, but there is a point in your life where you realize the game. You realize the interconnectedness of all things. You realize the sort of suddenness and quickness of life, like how long you've lived and how quick, that's like a blink of an eye, right? Because we've all, even you guys in your 20s or 30s, you realize that as well. And you realize at some point you say, you know what? I think it's time for me to arrive in this bliss state of consciousness. That I no longer need to always postpone my happiness. And that awareness, although it may seem, because we're already yoga adepts, like you guys probably have already practiced enough to become really aware of this idea that there is all of the things of the world that we chase, whatever they are, the house, the car, the person, if you're single, then it's also, there's when I'm married, right? There's that whole side. And that all of those things that you chase are for a feeling in the end, right? And what is that feeling? So I'm asking you, what is it? Contentment, right? Or bliss, or whatever you want to call it. Let's say contentment. That's a good word. That's a perfect way to describe this concept. And then you come to yogis, and yogis will say, all that stuff you've learned, forget it. There is only presence of mind, right? And it's the focus is no longer on the things. Like I was telling one of my friends the other day, I was saying, you know what, if all my stuff is lost, I'd still be okay. And he's like, how could you say that? I'm like, I'd be okay. He's like, no, but don't go there, and all this stuff. And I'm like, listen, it's all okay.
Stressed out.
He got all stressed out. I made him all crazy. He's like, but then, but here's the thing. So what we need to realize with yoga, and the reason I want to bring it back to why it's important for us, even though you can play the games, right? Because I just admitted to you. Because the reason I admit to you, I'm not bragging at all. I swear, I don't care. But the reason I'm saying it is because you can play all of those games, maybe even a little better, believe it or not. You can have all of those things that you think you need if you know that you don't actually need them. And because we live in a society that is trained that these samskaras are embedded in our hardwired in almost, that postpones bliss till what? So we're supposed to be at bliss. Like when I was in my 20s, I made a bunch of money teaching yoga, and I bought a really fancy car. I bought whatever. It was like, at that time, it was a brand new Acura Legend, which was a coupe. It was like a really fancy, it was a $55,000 car, which in 1995 or whatever, people would see me in that. They'd be like, oh, that's your dad's car. As a matter of fact, a cop pulled me over once because he didn't believe it was my car. And what I would say is the same thing I'm saying to you right now, is that though advancing and learning and all that stuff is part of our society, and that's wonderful, but also don't postpone your bliss. And yoga is a space where we come together, not to just get fit and listen to music and stretch and like see cute other attractive people and whatever, and all these, and be entertained and all that stuff. And all that stuff, those are all part of the reasons too. But one of the other ones is to go directly to the consciousness state, right? To that state of bliss, that state of, you know what? Not when I'm not going to work my whole life just to survive, just to pay the bills, to survive, to think of the next level, to go to the next level, just to, what? Retire when you're 65 and you're so old that you can barely enjoy that fast car because when you make turns it hurts your neck? Right? Doesn't that sound like we're being set up for that in a way? Right? We're sold this idea of that happiness is this thing that you would have when you're old or whatever, like the wisdom and all of that stuff. Then you get to retire and then you can relax. But until then, no, you're not there yet. And then when you get to be a little bit older, now I'm older now. My friends are grandparents, actually. I was telling my wife that, I'm like, you know what? If we don't think we're old, but our friends are grandparents, we're delusional, because my friends are the grandparents now, right? So I am of grandfather age, even though I'm not technically a grandfather. But when all your high school friends are, and you and you look at your life, and you've been studying yoga for years and years, and you realize these things are all sort of a game, you have to stop and say, okay, you know what? I am here. I've arrived. Thank you very much. And when somebody else tries to sell you something or some other idea, you can still play those. It doesn't necessarily take away, like I was saying, I still will get another house or whatever. Not, by the way, that part of it's not with my own money, oddly enough, because I guess I manifested the ability finally for people to trust me enough to invest with me. It's not even my money, just for the record. But I have the ability to actually get the other thing with my name. It's actually going to be under my name because somebody trusts me that much. And that's a manifestation of consciousness. Okay? That's what I heard that really loud when we were driving through Beverly Hills, and you're like, who do I have to be that? And the answer is you have to be not you, I think. It has to be us. It has to be a combination of people that will make that happen. You know what I mean? And when people trust you that much, you'll be able to get people that have that kind of wealth that can push that behind you and will believe in you and invest in that way. But with regards to consciousness, go to the bliss state anyway. So it's directly related to the practice. But I don't even know if that's going to happen or not. But what my point is it doesn't matter. And that we are pushed into this idea that you'll be able to be happy at some other point, when in fact, life, and this is from Alan Watts actually, life was a musical thing, and I'm speaking about it in past tense, and we were supposed to dance, right? And you can either listen to this and just go, yeah, no, but I need to keep my nose to the grindstone, whatever, and I need to be whatever, working in a plumber. Like, to me, like, I guess for me, hell would actually be house bolting. And I know, because one of the karmas of me owning a house, I had to bolt it. And it was meaning under the house, bolting with gas mask on and everything. It was just, if I could say the closest thing to hell, it felt like I was mining. Yes. So when you're training people in your class, probably one of the biggest gifts you can teach them, and you can teach it through emotional transference. I do think it's the only way to properly do that, is that you have to own that knowledge, that awareness, and believe it 100%. If you don't, it will be harder for you, in my opinion. And again, now, I don't know that there are set rules, but generally speaking, if you don't own that, then it won't create the chain reactions, right? It has to create a chain reaction that expands. And if that doesn't happen, I think that, again, it depends why people are training with you. You might be able to get them to train with you for other reasons, because they want to be fit or something like that. But I think that those are sort of the finger pointing to the moon, right? So there's a saying, the finger's pointing to the moon, don't just look at the finger. There's something greater. And with yoga, the greater is, oddly enough, is that it's presence of mind, and it's where we are right now. You're never going to be more human than you are. You might be thinner, you might be stronger, right? You might be, perhaps, I don't know, get famous or something. But even the famous ones that I've worked with, because I've worked with a few really famous people, some of them are happy and some of them are not. And they thought that the fame was going to bring them happiness. But in fact, it didn't. There are very few things that actually are geared to actually do that. And I think meditation and practices like yoga are the things that are that. They go directly to the emotion. That's why I teach yoga, personally. And that's what I want you guys to always be aware of, that fact. Yes, you'll have to do the daily things if you want to survive. Unless you get a patron or something, some weird case where somebody, which I don't think you should rule that out either as yoga teachers, right? Why not? If somebody wants to be your patron and support you in your craft as a teacher, that's fine. I don't think you should rely on that either. So you will have to do the daily, whatever it is, the Instagrams and things like I was talking about earlier before. But perhaps you can do them, and whether they happen and you actually do become a monetarily successful yoga teacher, or you don't, that you're okay with it. That's, I think, a healthier space to do it from. And you do the work, and then the universe provides. I don't think you necessarily should be too attached to that. And plus, that also comes back to doing what you love, because then you go back to your bliss state of consciousness anyway. And if it's not something you get that feeling from, like always, when you teach your first live group class, you'll see I always ask you guys, so how did you feel? I usually don't ask too much else. How did you feel when you were teaching? And if the answer is, oh, it was great. It was like the time went by. I was a little nervous, but it was fun. I want to do it again. And you're excited about it, then you know it's a thing for you to do. And if the answer is like, oh, I didn't really like it. Actually, I don't like being on stage. I don't like being in front of people. I felt really uncomfortable and I don't want to do it. Then I'm like, great. It's not for you, So that's something that you will feel, I think. You do get a feeling of that, I think, when you teach in the smaller classes. You do get a feeling, but you get more of that confirmation when you're actually teaching the group classes, I think.
When I taught my first class, it's going to be really weird. Some of you may feel like something turns around because you were always the student, and suddenly you'll see your issues from a teaching point.
Mm-hmm.
It's really freaky. Mm-hmm. It's just the same as when you're a student, but suddenly it's all there in all the students and the way you're reacting to what they're doing. Some of them not listening to you, some of them, you know, kind of all of your stuff still comes up, but in a different way. Mm-hmm. It's trippy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I barely remember that, but I do know what you're talking about. Yeah. And where you see also like you'll see other like traits in other people that are really obvious, and they're your own traits. The ones also typically that make you upset, there's sometimes those are the ones that you're like, whatever it is, like, oh, his mat's all dirty or something, whatever it is, and then you realize like, wait a minute, my mat's all dirty, hold on. So this idea, so we do get caught up, and I'm not saying that like I never get caught up, I do, but I also am reminded through the practice over and over again that the idea of postponing my happiness, the idea of that at some point I'm going to reach this higher state, enlightenment or whatever, where I'm going to suddenly disappear and leave my body, that's something that I've come to terms with and let go. And just really important for yoga teachers. And that's why I always say like, that's when I do get a little bummed out when I have to like, when I have yoga teachers that are like bickering or something. I'm like, you guys are yogis. You've got to get past this. If we can't get past it, who's going to get past it? You know what I mean? Like, we're supposed to be awake individuals, which means that very little matters, because in the presence of mind that yogis have, it doesn't matter. These are small things, all of them. The money, the car, the house, all of it, the whole lifetime for that matter, right? In a way, even this lifetime is a small thing. As drastic as that may sound, but it is. It's like 10,000 days or whatever. I only have like 8,000 days or something like that left, right? Till we go and come back. I know, but 36,500 days. It's very important for us to remember these, in my opinion, again, as a yogi. Because yogis are supposed to stretch, right? Like you read about in books, and I think a lot of it is, that's why some people don't believe in yoga and stuff, because you read about in books that they're supposed to be able to like expand their consciousness to be all of part of the universe, and they're supposed to be able to bend time and be in two places at once. But I think that where that comes from is the consciousness state. What they're talking about really is states of consciousness that are reached when you practice yoga, or when you do these kind of ideas, when you practice these ideas. The I am consciousness, that meditation, those consciousness trainings, or even like, did you guys see there's a bunch of meditations? One of them is the universe in the palm of the hand. So on each breath, basically, okay, why don't I do this? I'll take us through it. You guys want to do it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is to expand consciousness. So go ahead and just, lay down on your back. And for those of you at home, obviously, if you're sitting upright, that's okay, but we're in yoga class, so you can lay down on your back. And just breathe and relax. And first of all, whenever I teach my meditations, if you need to sleep, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Then you needed to sleep. So that's why we're doing this laying down. If you find yourself stressing out doing the visualizations, then let them go and just breathe and just relax. Because even that is a small thing. It's not that important. Okay, so we're going to start slowing the breath down. Taking a deep breath. Exhale through the mouth and relax. So just taking another deep breath. And exhale through the mouth and relax even more. Right? Because you can consciously relax. Whatever's happening on the outside world, we can relax. So see yourself now in your current life state. See your body as you're laying on this ground. wherever you are. Hovering above from, let's say, 10 feet, so you know consciously your soul is in your body. And as you look down, I want you to just see in the palm of your hand, imagine a little marble vibrating with infinite density. See its color, perhaps it's like a steel. For many meditators in this meditation say it's like a ball of steel or a ball of some kind of metallic density. But think of this thing as being so dense that it weighs more than the whole universe. And that's why it's vibrating with life. And then taking a deep breath. And as you do that, expand it out. So you're holding this marble in your hand and you're expanding it to the size of, let's say, a grapefruit. And now see it, and you see that it starts taking like a marble state, but it looks like a little galaxy in there. You could see that what you're holding in your hand, there's all these colors of purple and pink and stars and universes, right? Whole galaxies and multiverses exist within this thing. And then again, exhale through the mouth. And it gets a little smaller. And then breathe in again. And as you breathe in now, it expands even bigger. All the way, let's say, to the expanse of the size of this room. And exhale. And as you exhale, it gets a little smaller. Say half the size. And then breathe in again, expand that universe all the way again, this multiverse, all the way out, let's say to the size of the city in which we are in. The current city is Los Angeles, but it could be any city. And then as you exhale, imagine it contracts a little bit. And then again, imagine a spherical shape now. It's so big, it contains even you. But it even expands out and surrounds the globe, let's say all the way out to the stratosphere. And you know that, let's just take a journey to the stratosphere. You know that it's out of the stratosphere because suddenly your subtle body is out there with it. And as you look down across, you see your subtle body's arm. So you see your right arm. You see the hue of the stratosphere shining on the outer edge of your right arm. And as you exhale again, you notice it gets slightly smaller. You're still in the stratosphere, but you're right at the edge of it. And then breathe in again. And expand now this multiverse, this symbol of space and time continuum, expands all the way out to our galaxy itself. And again, you know that it's the galaxy, because as you look down across your arm, you can see the galaxy beneath you. And again, taking a deep breath. See it expand, and as you exhale, see it just get a little smaller. And then again, taking a deep breath and expand it out now even farther, because now we're in this galaxy and we're actually expanding out to the next galaxy and the next galaxy. Expand in consciousness even bigger, so big that we can even not imagine how big it possibly could be. It's so vast. And we know that it's so vast because when we try to stand on the outside of it this time, we realize that however hard we try, because it is infinite, we're still in the middle of it. And we know we're in the middle of it because as we look down at our feet this time, we can still see the space-time continuum. Taking a deep breath. And expand it even infinitely bigger than that. And as you exhale, see it contract. And it gets even smaller and smaller and smaller. And again, taking a deep breath, see it expand. So imagine now it's like the size of, let's say, a basketball. And as you exhale and you see it get even smaller and smaller and even smaller to where now it's the size of a marble that you hold in the palm of your hand. See it vibrate again. See its density. Notice its frequency. And as you breathe in now, expand it all the way out. On one breath, it expands to as big as it could possibly get, bigger than even the imagination can fathom. And as you exhale, all the way back down to this little marble in the palm of your hand. Inhale, expands. Exhale, it contracts. All the way down to the palm of your hand. As life as we know it wakes up when we wake up. And the consciousness that is our being right now has always existed, even before it existed in this body. Taking a deep breath and just feel into this idea. And then slowly just wiggle your fingers and toes. And roll to your side.